After years of making subtle tweaks to its most popular model, Mazda is making big changes with an all-new generation of CX-5. What's up, folks? I'm Dave Undercoffler, editor-in-chief of Autolist.com, a sister company to CarGurus. The previous generation of CX-5 has been around since 2017, so with this new generation, Mazda's making up for some lost time. This new version is bigger inside and out, has new styling inside and out, plus more tech and amenities. So is all that going to be enough to compete with a long list of very strong competitors like the Toyota RAV4, the Honda CR-V, Hyundai Tucson, Kia Sportage, Chevy Equinox, and Subaru Forester? Let's go spend some time with one and find out. But before we do, be sure to like and subscribe to this page so you can get alerts on all of our future updates. All right, let's start by talking about trims. There will be 5 trims available at the launch of this CX-5. The base model starts at about $30,000 and then goes to just over 40 grand for the fully loaded version you see here. All right, now let's take a look at the exterior of this new CX-5. The previous generation did some subtle nips and tucks throughout its lifespan, and it always kept it looking really good, really contemporary. So Mazda was careful not to upset that trend. So the look here is definitely an evolution of that styling without deviating too much. A couple of things I like, you've got really sleek headlights here. You can see these are the daytime running lights around here, and then a nice open grille gives it a sort of athletic, sporty profile. This is actually not metal. This is sort of a lighter painted trim. I think that's a really nice touch. So overall, yeah, looking sleek, modern, without changing it too much. All right, now let's take a look at the side of the new CX-5. This is one area where the vehicle grew the most. Both the wheelbase and the overall length are up 4.5 inches. That makes it one of the longest vehicles in its segment, and it also translates into a lot of interior space. We'll show you that a little bit later. Finally, I want to point out the wheel designs. We're in a fully loaded S Premium Plus, so we've got these painted 19-inch alloy wheels. Other trims will have 17-inch alloy wheels. I've seen both this design and one of the 17-inch wheel designs, and I gotta say, I don't love either of them. Traditionally, Mazda has had some really good rim designs. They're really elegant, really classy, but both of the ones I've seen on this new CX-5 are falling short of that. Turning to the back, Mazda did a really nice job of including its brand styling here. This taillight signature is very similar to the ones you're going to find on the larger CX-70 and CX-90. I think it's a great look. I'm really glad they applied it to the smaller CX-5. And another thing I want to point out, the Mazda logo is now gone. Instead, you've got this Mazda script running across the back. All right, let's take a look under the hood. The previous generation of the CX-5 had this base engine, and then you could get an optional turbo engine. That turbo engine is now no more for this new generation, so you're stuck with just this base model. Mazda has said it will come out with a hybrid CX-5 in 2027. But for right now, your only option is this 2.5-liter 4-cylinder engine. It makes 187 horsepower, 186 pound-feet of torque. That carries over from the previous generation. It's hooked up to a 6-speed automatic transmission. All-wheel drive is now standard across all trims of the CX-5. That is pretty cool, especially considering this starts at about $30,000, so definitely keep that in mind. In terms of fuel economy, this is rated at 24 miles per gallon in the city, 30 on the highway, and 26 overall. All right, now to the interior of this CX-5, and this is another area that Mazda made some really big changes, and most of them I really like. There are a few things that are driving me nuts about it. We'll get to those in just a minute, but let's start with the good. The first thing is this screen. This is a huge screen. It's a 15.6-inch screen, but one thing to note, this screen is only available on the top trim. That's the Premium Plus. Everything else in the CX-5 lineup will get the 12.9-inch screen, so something to consider. Although we've sat in a trim with the smaller screen, and it really doesn't feel that much smaller than what you see here. Some cars, the base models, it feels like a penalty box, but not so on the CX-5, so that's pretty cool. Overall, the screen is really nice. If you've seen earlier Mazdas, they had this really sort of rectangular screen. It was mounted kind of far away. It was a touch screen in some instances, but in other times you had to use a rotary knob. All that's gone. They've replaced it with this system. This uses Google built-in, so it has Google Maps as the standard navigation system. You also have Google Assistant and Google Play Store, so that's pretty cool. We have wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. That's on most trims, but keep in mind the base model, you still need to use a cord for that connectivity. Overall, this screen is nice. It's very bright. I like its size. It's pretty fast for our inputs. Down below, you do have some climate control features, but this is where things start to fall apart a little bit. The climate control, there's a couple different ways to get more of the functions to display. You can either swipe up from here, and you get this full menu. And then there's another row of very small buttons that are kind of hard to hit, especially if you're trying to keep your eyes on the road. You hit those and that's going to give you features like the heated steering wheel, heated seats, or ventilated seats, because again, we're in a fully loaded model. So that's a little frustrating. I do wish that there was more of a permanent menu down here on this screen. But the biggest mistake Mazda made on this CX-5, in my mind, and I bet you in the mind of many consumers, is there's no volume knob. Mazda used to have a really nice setup right here on the console, a really nice rotary knob for either the passenger or the driver to use, but that is gone. There's no knob for the volume or any other functions on the stereo. That's so frustrating. To use the volume, you have this, you gotta tap that, and then you can use this toggle. The driver does have really nice controls on the steering wheel, so you can also use that, but I just wish you've got a whole new generation of vehicle. I really am missing that volume knob. Now, while it is frustrating that Mazda did away with all of those buttons and knobs, you do have the Google built-in, so you can use voice commands to control nearly every function of the car that the buttons used to do. Another standard feature on all CX-5 trims is the 10.25-inch digital instrument cluster. That's pretty cool. It allows you some customization. You can toggle through and have different views. I will say one thing that's driving me nuts is that there's no trip computer. So there's no trip A, trip B, or odometer. It is in this screen and you can reset it here, but I'm just so used to having that here. You've got a digital screen. I don't know why Mazda didn't put it in there, but it's not there. But you do have the digital display, and so that is a nice feature. Another nice feature is the steering wheel itself has lots of buttons on it, but thankfully Mazda made them real buttons. They're not touch sensitive, they're not these weird haptics, they are actually clickable buttons. So you do have your volume control over here, you can change the drive modes over here, and they're clickable. I don't know if you can hear that, but they're nice tactile buttons. That's pretty cool. Also on the steering wheel is a button to engage the 360-degree surround view camera. This is a really cool camera system, gives you a great view of what's going on around the car when you're trying to park in a tight space. So yes, you have a button for that on the screen. It will also engage when you put the car into reverse, but it's just nice to have an extra button on the wheel. But overall, Mazda did a nice job with this interior because it balances value with that premium feel that some Mazdas these days are known for. A couple of things I like: you've got this two-tone interior, right, with the tan seats and then the black dashboard. You also have some stitching running across here and some brushed metal accents on the steering wheel. So that's all well and good, but there are some cost-cutting measures that Mazda has snuck in here. The big one that's caught my eye is this hard plastic above the instrument panel here and then along the doors. This is very cheap. That's the kind of stuff that's going to scratch really easily and show its age quickly. All right, now let's take a look at the rear seat space. As I mentioned, this overall vehicle is 4.5 inches longer, and that translates into more space in these back seats. That's great because that was a big flaw of the previous generation CX-5. So if you've seen our videos before, you know the drill. I put the front seat to where I would have it if I were driving up there. I'm 6'1", so basically I'm sitting behind myself. And as you can see, I've got tons of space. It's about 2.5 inches more legroom than the previous generation. This is about mid-pack in terms of legroom relative to some of its competitors, but headroom is among the best in the entire segment. And then in terms of amenities, you do have some nice touches back here. You've got an armrest with a pair of cup holders. Down below, you have a pair of USB-C charge ports for your devices. We have 3-stage heated seats on this fully loaded trim, a pair of air vents right here, and then up above, a really nice panoramic moonroof. All right, one more thing I want to show you before we look at the cargo space. Check out how wide these doors open. They go all the way open like that, almost a 90-degree angle. As somebody with kids, I think that's a great feature. It's often overlooked by automakers, so kudos to Mazda for including it on this CX-5. All right, now let's take a look at cargo space. This is up almost 2 cubic feet of room back here over the previous generation of the CX-5, but that does still put it on the lower end of the segment in terms of overall room. But there are some improvements that I really like. This load floor is now lower, so that's pretty cool. The rear seats are split 40-20-40 to give you a lot of options to fold them. They fold completely flat, and they fold flat if you just pull this lever on either side of the cargo area. That's pretty cool. And then one more thing I love. Thank you, Mazda, for including this. There's actually a real spare tire back here. Most cars today, most vehicles are using some sort of inflator kit. If you've ever had a flat on the side of the road, you know those things are useless. So I love that there's an actual tire that you can use in an emergency. All right, next up, driving impressions, and this is another area where it's a bit of a mixed bag in the new CX-5. Traditionally, Mazdas are known for their great handling. Even in crossovers, they all handle better than their rivals, and that's still the case in this CX-5. It feels nice, has good communication with the road. The steering is really nice, so you have a nice sense of where the car is at all times. The suspension is also really comfortable. It's sport tuned, but it's not too stiff in any situation, so I like that balance. Where things start to fall apart a little bit is the powertrain. As I mentioned, this is a carryover powertrain from the previous generation, 187 horsepower and a 6-speed automatic transmission. So in addition to having the same amount of horsepower as the previous generation, this car is now at least 100 pounds heavier. So you definitely feel that extra weight and that low horsepower when you go to accelerate. Here, I'll do it right now. There's not a lot of grunt there, not a lot of power. Many of the competitors to this Mazda are gonna have more power. They're also gonna have more speeds in their transmissions. This again is 6 speeds. That's pretty low for 2026. So the whole driving experience just does feel a little tedious. It feels like the car is just always working a little too hard, and that's pretty frustrating. Another thing that's been bothering me is that when you do go to accelerate and you really floor it like this, the engine, in addition to not having the power you're looking for, it just sounds kind of coarse. It's kind of loud. It doesn't give you that premium experience that Mazda is going for on this CX-5. Other than that loud engine, the rest of the drive experience is pretty refined. The road noise, the wind noise are all really nicely controlled. This feels like a smooth riding vehicle. It does have that premium feel, again, until the engine cuts into the experience. Finally, in terms of visibility, it's pretty good. The A-pillar is fairly thin. You've got a nice view of the road in front of you. The car sits up at about the height you'd expect. You feel like you're not too low, not too high relative to everything else on the road. B-pillar over my shoulder is what you'd expect, and then the view out the back is pretty good. All right, folks, there you have it. Our review of the all-new, totally redesigned 2026 Mazda CX-5. Pros, well, we love the new styling inside and out. We think it looks great, definitely punches above its weight in terms of elegance. We also love that all-wheel drive is now standard across all trims, and those trims start at $30,000. That makes it a great value. There's also more space inside. No one's gonna complain about that. And then finally, that larger infotainment screen, really bright, crisp, and functional. Cons, well, both the engine and transmission are carryovers from the previous generation CX-5, and they're definitely starting to show their age, and they feel slow. We also wish that the hybrid version was available at the launch of this new generation. And finally, there were those idiosyncrasies on the interior that drove us a little nuts, whether that's missing buttons where it should have them, or the cheap materials and parts of the cabin. But overall, we think this is a compelling update to Mazda's most popular model. It's not perfect, it definitely could use a little more power, but it is certainly competitive. So if you're shopping for a compact crossover, this CX-5 should definitely be on your list. So for reviews or listings of this CX-5 or anything else you're shopping for, new or used, be sure to check out CarGurus.com. And we now have a podcast. It's called The Driveway, featuring yours truly and the rest of our great content team. Be sure to check it out wherever you get your other favorite podcasts. And before you go, like and subscribe to this channel so you can get alerts on all of our future updates. We'll see you out there.